Alex Hormozi built a $100 million business using a simple equation. And after building over 500 websites, we found that the ones converting at the highest actually follow it very closely. Now, if you haven't heard of it before, it's basically a formula he uses in his marketing to turn total strangers into paying customers. But what most people don't realize is that you can actually apply this to your business's landing page. See, whenever websites don't convert, most companies assume that they either have a design or a traffic issue, but the real problem is almost always that the page isn't communicating the company's value in a way that customers actually care about. And that's exactly what this equation helps you fix. So if you've been wondering why your landing pages aren't driving conversions, or you feel like the website just isn't performing the way it should, this video is for you, because I'm about to break down each element of Hormozi's value equation and exactly how it applies to a high converting landing page. But before we get into each variable, you first need to understand what the value equation actually is and why it maps so cleanly to a landing page. At its core, it's a formula for understanding what makes something feel valuable to a buyer. On top, you've got the dream outcome and the perceived likelihood of achievement, which basically corresponds to the results you're promising and how confident the visitor feels that you actually can deliver for someone like them. At the bottom, you have time delay, effort, and sacrifice, or how long it's going to take to get the result and how hard it's going to be to help them get it. Now, the goal is pretty straightforward. You want to maximize the top and you want to minimize the bottom, so the outcome feels as desirable and achievable as possible while you make the time and effort required feel as small as possible. And when you apply that logic to a landing page, something really interesting happens, because those four variables map almost perfectly to the four questions a visitor silently asks the moment they land on your landing page. What do I actually get? Can these people deliver it? How long is it going to take? And how much work is it going to take? Most B2B landing pages don't answer any of those questions explicitly, so potential customers are always left with a little bit of doubt or uncertainty. And that's exactly why they don't convert, which is why learning how to apply Hormozi's value equation to your landing page can make such a big difference. So the first variable is dream outcome, and here's how Hormozi explains it.
If we were to think about an ideal outcome, all right, so let's use weight loss because it's an example that most people can understand, all right? So why is it that, let's say you have some things that you can sell for weight loss, like $50,000 surgeries for liposuction, and on the other hand, you've got a $5 ebook that promises a skinny tummy. If they make the same promise, right, which is the dream outcome, number one, how is it that these two things are so different in price, right? Well, it's the other three variables, right? Because the dream outcome, people want to lose weight, right? And so that's unit number one.
Now, the reason you want to maximize the dream outcome is simple. The more desirable it is, the more valuable it feels to a visitor, and the more they believe your product or service is worth their time, money, and attention. If the result you're promising feels small or vague, nothing else on the page matters. They've already mentally moved on and are starting to think about alternatives. Now, the way this dream outcome actually shows up on the landing page is almost always in your headline and your subheadline. That's the first things a visitor sees, so it needs to communicate exactly what your product or service can do for them. Not what you do or how you do it, but what they can expect from working with you. When you nail that, the visitor immediately feels like they're in the right place and it keeps them interested. So let me show you the difference between a strong dream outcome and a weak one on a real page. All right, let's take a look at this in the real world, because it's great to talk about this stuff in theory, but how does it actually apply when we're trying to make this happen for real businesses? So looking at this example from the Estimating Edge, the copy on their website today, if you go to visit this website, you'll see the same exact copy that we're referencing. But really what they're doing is just kind of explaining broadly what the product does. And you're going to see this commonplace throughout many different B2B industries, many different applications, software, services, what have you. It's really a misstep. So if we read this first headline, the most robust estimating software solution available, I'm getting that it's construction estimating software, good, but the rest of it's not really super specific. So what does robust really mean in context? I'm not quite sure. And there's not a lot of outcome language in here at all. When we look at the sub headline, it's kind of reiterating again what's being said in the top headline. So the Edge is a comprehensive construction takeoff and estimating software designed for contractors, bid with it or bid against it. So again, we're kind of reiterating what it is high level, but we're not really getting into any specifics and there's no real outcomes. Really the most action oriented thing in the sub headline is the bid against it text there, but I think we could be doing a lot better. So let's take a look at this example here where we kind of reformat this, thinking about what the dream outcome is for contractors and how we can better align that with the software. So a headline shifts to something that's a lot more dream outcome focused. Outbid the competition with faster estimates that are up to 87% more accurate. The edge gives contractors the tools to deliver consistent, data-driven bids that improve win rates, eliminate rework, and build confidence in every number that you submit. So there's a few things going on here that I think are working better in combination to both explain what the product does, but then also speak to the customer's outcomes that they desire most. So outbidding the competition right up front, we're talking to the thing that these contractors care about most. They want to win more deals. So if this product can help them accomplish that, it's really important that we state that up front. So outbid the competition. Now we're talking about faster estimates. So faster estimates is part of the time delay in this equation. We're getting faster estimates to these potential opportunities, which means we're in the consideration phase faster. And then 87% more accurate. So there's some confidence that's being built there using a very specific number to do so. Then in the subheadline, there's a few phrases in here that also speak to the dream outcome. So things like improve win rates, eliminate rework, and build confidence are all things that these contractors want to accomplish as well. They also do a good job of explaining the different facets of what the product can do, a little bit better than just using the term robust or full feature solution, right? We're being more specific, and we're also speaking to what the customers care about most. So just a little shift like this in the header can make a huge difference. So think about this, like how can you take what you have right now for your product or service and apply this type of formula to it? I will guarantee you that if you have something closer to this, you're going to see better results on your page. Now, if you want to convert more visitors without having to learn how to apply this value equation to your website yourself, just book a call using the link below. We've helped over 500 companies, including Boston Dynamics, Boom Supersonic, and NBC Sports, build high converting web pages over the years. So if you're looking for results without the learning curve and effort required to do it all yourself, just hit the link in the description below and we'll see if we can do the same for you. Either way, this brings us to our second variable, the perceived likelihood of outcome. And just like the dream outcome, this is something that we want to maximize. Here's how Hormozi describes it.
If I have two people who are selling the same exact thing, let's use a doctor in that weight loss example, like the liposuction guy. And let's say that liposuction guy A, doctor, has done 10,000 surgeries of liposuction. And let's say Dr. B has done one. Same surgery, same dream outcome. It's gonna take the same amount of time, same amount of effort for you. This guy might even spend more time on you than this guy because he's not as experienced. Which one are you gonna go with? Probably the 10,000 guy. Why? Because of the perceived likelihood of achievement. We have lower risk associated with making this purchase because we believe that if we give this money, we're going to have the outcome that we desire. And so if you think through this in terms of your own products, you're like, am I doing a good enough job before the purchase of increasing someone's perceived likelihood of achievement? Because in a very real way, that confers itself or it translates into higher prices. This guy, even though it probably takes him less time to do the surgery, he actually can charge more than this guy. Isn't that wild?
See, even if a visitor is completely sold on the outcome you're promising, but they don't feel like you can actually deliver it for them, they're not converting. It's the difference between someone thinking that sounds amazing and I believe they can do it for my company. Now, on a landing page, this variable lives almost entirely in your proof and credibility sections, which means your past client logos, case study results, testimonials, just about anything that shows a real person in a similar situation got the result you're promising. But here's where most B2B pages get it wrong. They either put their proof all the way at the bottom of their page or on a separate page of case studies entirely, when it should be highlighted much earlier. Because the moment a visitor reads your dream outcome and headline, their brain immediately pushes back with some skepticism. And if the next thing they see doesn't start to resolve that, they leave. So let me show you how to actually get this right in practice. So look, you can make all the claims you want in the world about how great your product is, how great your service is, but at the end of the day, if you don't have proof to back it up, it's not going to really mean all that much to a prospective customer. So for today, I wanted to just quickly run through this example with a client of ours, Auto Vitals, and kind of how we did this strategically for them in like key sections of their site. So when we're looking at their feature cards, here we want to explain different facets of the product and like how it ties back to the business. So in each one of these cards, there's going to be a clear statement made about the product. In this case, we're talking about digital vehicle inspections and how essentially it helps facilitate sales. So customers customers don't want a sales pitch, they want transparency. AutoVital's advanced DVI helps show exactly what's wrong, explain why it matters, and build trust that results in more approved work. So that's an amazing statement about the product, and it's touching on a lot of pain points that auto repair shop owners are experiencing. It's also talking to dream outcomes in regards to more approved work, more sales. But it's one thing to say it, then we have to come up with ways to back it up. So in this case, we actually pulled metrics out of their product itself, comparing what customers were experiencing before and after. So in this case, for this particular feature, 76% increase in job approvals, 27% increase in average repair value. This really helps illuminate to the potential customer what this can do for their bottom line. So then we go ahead and we find relevant metrics for each one of these key features. So for workflow automation, we're talking about hours saved per day and increased shop capacity, because this is all about efficiency. When we're thinking about customer relationship management, we're talking about average order value increases, average weekly revenue increases, because this is all about deepening relationships with customers. And then when we're talking about websites and digital marketing, we're actually pulling a testimonial that speaks directly to how AutoVitals can put together more effective websites for their shop owners. So, metrics as well as testimonials kind of coming together to bring that social proof, using the right tool for the right job in each one of these sections. Additionally, if we take another scroll, we'll check out that they have some case studies that are also uniquely positioned here. So we went through some really key aspects of their offering in terms of features. Now we're going to immediately highlight some real world clients that have used this and what type of transformations it's created for their businesses. So here it's not just, hey, here's these clients that we worked with. We're illuminating what type of specific outcomes they've received right here in these cards. Then if you want to go read more, you can click in, read the full story, and do an even deeper dive. But if you don't, you're still getting a lot of value just from a glance in these sections. So again, it's really key to use this trust consistently to back up what you're saying and not just have it isolated either to a separate section of a page, or even worse, like a separate page altogether, because there's no guarantee that people are actually going to see that and engage with it. You want them to see this stuff, and you want it to further facilitate the claims that you're making. Now, the third variable is the time delay, and this is where we switch to minimizing things as much as possible, because this is how Hormozi describes it.
If you have two agencies that are side by side and they both say, hey, I'm going to do some marketing for you and I'm going to get your phone to ring, one way or another. Marketing agency A says, okay, now that we're doing this, you're going to have to start, recording lots of ads for us, and we're going to be meeting 3 times a week, an hour each time, and you're probably going to take 4 hours a week to record these ads for us, and it's going to take us 60 days to get this stuff done. At day 60, your phone starts ringing from the ads that they do. Okay? Marketing agent number 2. You sign the paper, and as soon as you sign the paper and they process your credit card, your phone rings and it's a lead. Within seconds. Same product. Time collapse. And so one of the easiest things, I had a mentor once say this, he said one of the easiest ways to figure out what product to sell is look at the products everyone else is selling and deliver the same thing in half the time.
See, the longer it feels like something is going to take, the less valuable it becomes, even if the outcome is exactly what a visitor wants. Luckily, the key word here is feels, because there's oftentimes very little businesses can do about their actual timeline. But there's a lot you can do about the timeline a visitor is imagining in their head when they read through your landing page, because most people expect processes to be unnecessarily long, complicated, and disruptive. So if your landing page says nothing to challenge that assumption, they're just going to default to it, which means the last thing you want to do is dive into a long, complex explanation of how your product or service works. Instead, you want to highlight the fastest results or feedback they can receive as simply as possible. Something that makes them feel like even if the dream outcome takes a few months to materialize, they're still going to be reaping at least some benefit in the near future. Now, I know that probably sounds complicated, so let me show just how easy this is to apply in practice. All right, so at this point, it's probably obvious to you that you need a really good dream outcome, something that's going to catch somebody's attention, get them really interested. But we also need to make it really clear how we're minimizing risk to those potential people too, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to make a risky decision, especially in B2B where there's potentially jobs on the line. So, one of the biggest risks that is a factor in any engagement is going to be time, because these B2B sales or B2B offerings often take a lot of time to actually implement. So you don't want to spend 4, 5, 6 months and then get to the end of the road and just not have the solution you're looking for. So, being able to speak to what somebody can get or what they can expect and when, really, really important, and it helps mitigate that risk. So this company Punch is actually doing a phenomenal job of this, and they're doing it in a number of ways that are really clever in my opinion, and also pretty subtle. So they're not just beating you over the head with these bold statements like immediately you hit the page and it says like new leads in 30 days or less, right? They're doing it in a little bit of a different way that I think is more elevated and I think really speaks to the type of clientele that they have. So if we scroll down on this page, right up front, this section here I think is amazing, and candidly I might steal this for the future. So they're not just using client logos here, they're directly speaking to outcomes tied to these client logos, and they're using time as the connecting tissue for the outcomes as well. So when we look at something like Nutrimetrics, 200 plus leads in 7 months, that's pretty cool. We can see here, if we let it go a little bit longer, there's going to be more things here. So Ephesus, 41 million in pipeline in 1 year, 400 meetings in 8 months. So we're starting to see what types of outcomes they're receiving in these types of timelines. So Salesforce, 25 target accounts in 3 months. I'm starting to see like, okay, these different businesses are getting some pretty big results in some relatively short time periods considering the size and scale of deals that we're talking about here. Intercom, 51 deals in 3 months. So now I'm starting to get a sense of, somewhere between maybe 3 months and 1 year, I can start to really see some big ROI on these opportunities that are coming in. If I scroll down a little bit further and I'm looking at something like this SDR as a service tab, you can see they're making a claim here in the subheadline, expert SDRs book qualified meetings in your sales calendars in less than 30 days. The other thing that they're doing that I think is really smart is they are also reiterating this with case studies that back up the claim. So when I'm looking at SDR as a service and I'm looking at Lumi, 56 qualified meetings in the first quarter of working together. All right, reiterating what I already saw previously in terms of that 90-day marker. If I scroll down even further and I get to the bottom, we're also going to be touching on time, but again, in a little bit of a different way. So here it's the investment I need to make in the sales process to figure out whether or not this is going to be a good fit for me. So here they're making the claim, in 30 minutes, learn how we drive pipeline results from day one. So there's actually a little bit of a double whammy in terms of time expectations here. So 30 minutes is the time investment I'm going to make in this sales call. And the expectation is they're going to give me a plan that provides results from day one. So in potentially 90 to 365 days, I can have really big outcomes, but I can also expect something from day one in terms of this campaign. So if I'm assessing this, whether or not I want to move forward with Punch or at least have this conversation, to me, I have a really clear expectation now up front of what type of results I can receive and when. That removes a lot of doubt, that removes a lot of risk, and it's really, really well done. Now, that brings us to our fourth and final variable in the equation, the effort and sacrifice visitors expect in exchange for their dream outcome. And Hormozi explains it pretty simply.
Let's say marketing agency A and B, and I said A had, you have to three meetings a week, and you've got 4 hours to deliver us copy and creative and whatever, right? Versus the other agency that's like, oh, we've already tested all the stuff for your industry, and we've got videographers and whatnot who can already just start running the stuff. Like, you just pass and it's taken care of. How much more valuable is the guy who takes none of your effort and sacrifice, takes no effort on your part to make this outcome occur?
You see, if a visitor is sold on the outcome, believes you can deliver it, and thinks the timeline is reasonable, if working with you feels like it's going to be complicated or risky, they're still not going to convert. And most people hear effort and sacrifice and think about the actual work involved in the product or completing a project. But what you really need to do in this case is what we call de-risking play. Because usually people are less worried about the effort than they are about the risk they're taking by saying yes. See, in B2B, the person filling out your form or getting in touch isn't just making a personal decision, they're making one they'll also have to justify to someone else too. So anything on your page that feels uncertain, open-ended, or hard to explain is going to stop them from doing it. That includes the language you use to describe what you do, the way you frame it, the first steps, and whether or not you offer any kind of risk reversal, which is a shame because a lot of B2B landing pages don't realize this, and you end up making your product or your service feel a lot riskier to use than they actually are. So let me show you you how to actually minimize this in real life. Okay, so we have established our dream outcome. We've minimized the time risk. Now we need to just minimize the risk fully and make it really clear what somebody can expect after they engage with you. So I'm going to use two examples. One is going to be a contact form from a competitor of ours. One's going to be our contact form. I've blocked out the information for the competitor, so we'll just read the form. This is pretty standard contact form that you're going to see on most B2B websites. Let's work together, tell us about your project, and we'll get back to you shortly. Complete out the form or email us at, and then they give you their email address. Then in the form, you have standard fields like name, email address, phone number, etc. You have all these different choices you can make in terms of services, and then you can drop a general message. The problem with this is that they're not being super specific in terms of what you can expect. It's just kind of like fill out the form, we'll get back to you. There's no specificity in terms of time. There's no specificity in what type of response I'm going to get. So there's a lot of doubt here, right? Like I can fill this out and maybe never get a response. So let's take a look at our contact form by contrast. So what to expect after you click submit. You'll receive a response from Humor in less than 1 hour, and we'll book a call to learn everything we can about you, your customers, and your competition to become one team. So here we're being very specific about what time frame they can expect a response from us, and that we're going to book a call as a next action where we're going to be doing a lot of learning and listening. Next step, so we're giving them step-by-steps here in terms of what's happening after this form is submitted. We would come up with an ideal plan that you would to get the results you're looking for. So again, creating a plan, we're tying it back to the results they want. We're going to then execute the strategy with transparent project management so you feel informed and included each step of the way. This is addressing some pain points that agency customers often have, which is they just feel the agency is not communicating well enough or maybe not being transparent enough. So we're kind of breaking that down and saying upfront, like this is going to be a transparent, collaborative relationship. And then last but not least, we're saying we will launch your brand new website and you'll start seeing results. So again, the outcome they're looking for is a brand new website that does what they want it to do. So, 4 steps clearly articulated right next to the form. You let me know in the comments, which one would you rather fill out? Which one do you feel more confident filling out? The first option or the second option? And that's exactly how you apply Hormozi's value equation to your landing pages to convert more visitors into paying customers. But getting this right is just the first step because most people still need to be convinced to buy the specific product or service that you're selling, even if they trust and like your brand. And all of that happens on your product pages. So if you want to see how to optimize for each maximum conversion, watch this video next and I'll see you there.